5 o'clock, we've uncovered new information about the contempt of court case against Michelle Troconis. She's accused of displaying a sealed Doulos family psych report on a laptop during her trial. Chief investigative reporter Sam Smink tracked down the warrant. She is joining us live with new information. Sam.
Aaron, in that 7-page warrant unsealed today, we learned it was Jennifer Farber Doulos' close friend, Carrie Luft, who first let police and prosecutors know something was wrong. According to the warrant, Luft noticed Troconis had a document up on her computer screen during the trial that appeared to contain excerpts from a sealed child custody report. The Douloses were going through a bitter divorce before Jennifer's disappearance. A family judge had sealed the document in 2019, a few weeks before Jennifer disappeared. The warrant says during the trial, Luft handed police a note saying Troconis appeared to have a page from the sealed report up on her computer in large font. You can see in that court video the moment Troconis changes her computer screen after Luft's note is passed to state prosecutors. The warrant also states a Stanford Advocate reporter saw Troconis looking at an article about state criminologist Henry Lee, who was found guilty in fabricating evidence during a 1985 murder trial that resulted in the conviction of 2 men. Troconis is set to appear in court on the contempt charge March 21st. On Friday, Troconis was found guilty of 6 counts, including conspiracy to commit murder in Jennifer's case. Her attorney told us today she would not be able to pay her $6 million bond and will be in custody until sentencing May 31st. Sam Smink, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.